Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana. Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana. Nativa Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana. Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana. Nativa Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha, Jaya Radha Samasundara Samasundara, Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Bhagavad-Gita, Sudhar Sudhar Divine Guest, Abhachan Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Iskan Pramachari Divine Guest Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Vishnu Paramahamsa Bhagavad-Gita, Sudhar Sudhar Divine Guest, Srila Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anand Vishnu Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Vidas Thakur Ki Jai, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaura Bhakta Ki Jai Shri Shiva Krishna Gopal Shyam Radha Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavan Ki Jai Kandarajman Bhagavad-Gita Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory, Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glory, Shri Prabhupada Ki.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the wonderful devotees. 1st January, this new year. We hope you all have a very ecstatic and wonderful Krishna conscious year. Tonight we're going to be covering chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Very, very wonderful chapter. Let us start with the invocation. Om Jnanatimi Vandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tamvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishpanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhe Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Bhagavad-Gita as it is, based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Let us go over chapter 5 overview. Let's do a recap. What points you remembered, what really caught your attention, caught your heart, found interesting, something that you really have to work on. Please share either on the chat, in the YouTube chat, or even you can unmute and share with us. Peace formula, Mukund Prabhu says he learned about the peace formula. Yes, a very, very important formula. Krishna is given in the 5th chapter. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam tanatvam shanti richati. That Krishna is Bhokta. He is the enjoyer. He's the proprietor. He's the well-wishing friend. And when we really imbibe that within ourselves, we will experience peace. as a community, as a society, we will experience peace. This is Krishna's peace formula. People are seeking for peace. Unfortunately, due to false ego, they don't want to follow the peace formula given by the Supreme Personality of God and Himself. This is the unfortunate state of affairs. Mother Hemavati Radhika says, be thoughtful, disciple. Yes, don't just, and Prabhupada used the word independently thoughtful. So we should not just, monkey see, monkey do. Even though we know Srila Prabhupada gave us everything without any cheating involved, still we have to think, we have to contemplate. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, we should try to preach Krishna consciousness. So then we have to be thoughtful how to expand Krishna consciousness according to time, place, and circumstance. And then Bhoga Tyaga, Chapala Sukha, nature of this material world. The more we appreciate Krishna's direction and evaluation of this material creation because He created it, then we can align to it. Then we can understand the nature of it and we don't become perturbed and disturbed. Sukadeva Goswami said, we must engage our senses in Krishna consciousness. That is the essence of Bhakti Yoga. Full engagement of all our senses in Krishna's service. Very good. The analogy of meditation, how living entities meditate on Krishna, meditate on their offsprings. Similarly, by us meditating on Krishna, we become nourished. And Krishna focuses. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master said, don't try to see God, but act in such a way that God will want to see you. Newton Mora says, sense gratification is a cause of material attachment. It looks beautiful, but causes pain and miseries. We should work in devotion as it helps us purify, spiritualize our activities. Yes, they say looks are deceiving. So sense gratification is like that. It's a trap. And unfortunately, we ask for the trap. Now, it's not that we cannot get gratification. It's not that we cannot be happy. Today also in chapter 6, we're going to be covering how the yogi experiences a happiness that's unrestricted. So it is there, but it is not in this material nature. It is not in this material world. Mother Rasastali said, so grateful you taught us this verse many years ago. Now I know it's called the peace formula. Yes. Mother Ramapriya says, have to love Krishna to be able to love everyone. Correct. Many people, they say service to man is service to God. If I love humanity, I love God. But actually, if you love humanity and serve humanity minus Krishna, it is incomplete. You will not be able to completely satisfy everyone. The way to do it is by connecting first to Krishna, and then automatically you will be able to connect perfectly and serve everyone through that medium of Krishna consciousness. Viraj said karma, vikarma, and akarma, 3 types. Yes, by understanding what is pious activities, what is impious activities, and what is devotional activity. Nalini Kanta Prabhu says, we are not the doer, a very bewildering aspect for many people. How is it I'm not doing? I mean, I'm doing everything. And Krishna is saying, I'm not a doer. Yes, Krishna is right. We are simply desiring, and Krishna, through the modes of material nature, is doing everything. It's a very, very profound aspect that Krishna teaches in Bhagavad-Gita. And in the spiritual world, we find that the living entity is able to actually act. But even then, it is under the service. It's as a servant of the servant of the servant, serving the associates of Krishna, even not directly. Mother Rasastali said, when we become fully conscious of Lord Krishna and understand the Lord is our well-wisher and thus attain peace. The soul desires and the modes of material nature does the action. Yes, Mukund Prabhu learned that yesterday. Very good. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. The soul is right. Let us now continue. Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. So we covered yesterday the power of knowledge. Chapter 2 is about knowledge of the soul. Then chapter 4 is knowledge about Krishna. When you take knowledge of the soul and knowledge of Krishna, apply that on activities, on work, karma yoga, you're going to get chapter 5, karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. But we find that in reality, we take chapter 2 plus the knowledge of chapter 4, we apply it on karma yoga chapter 3, and instead of getting chapter 5, which is what we expect, the reality is we get chapter 1. And as Viraj said in chapter 1, he learned nimitani viparitani. We get reverses, we get lamentation, we get indecision, we get inaction, we don't want to act, we get bewilderment. Arjuna experiences all these emotions. I'm losing my mind, I'm depressed, frustrated. So that's what we get. Why do we get that? It seems contradictory, and the reason is very simple. It's because of your mind, senses, and desires. It's because of your uncontrolled mind, senses, and desires. And this is what this chapter is going to reveal. So Ashtanga Yoga, chapter 6. Ashtanga Yoga, mechanical meditative process, controls the mind and the senses and focuses concentration on the Paramatma, the Super Soul, the form of the Lord situated in the heart. This practice culminates in Samadhi, full consciousness of the Supreme. There are 5 sections of this. In fact, one more section is missing, 6 sections actually. Last 2 verses are describing the topmost yogis. So there's 6 sections that we're going to be covering. So section 1, advancing in yoga through detached work. So the Lord is going to describe the yoga ladder coming to Ashtanga Yoga. 6:1-4. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. And you'll see this point coming up again and again and again. We cannot have love and lust at the same time. We cannot have the spiritual world and the material world at the same time. It just doesn't. It's like having, it's like going across a river with 2 boats, 1 leg in each boat. It's not possible. It's just very, very difficult. Or oil and water does not mix. So we have to have one or the other. We cannot have both. 3, for one who is a neophyte in the 8-fold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be means. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So it's very clear Krishna is introducing this aspect of working with a renounced spirit. And when you are purified and have no material desires, then you can renounce work. And specifically for the yogis, this 8-fold yogic system that we shared yesterday also, this is specifically for linking with the Supreme. So as we see in this picture, is this yoga. Unfortunately, in today's world, there are many, many forms of yoga. Yoga for tennis, blood pressure yoga, office yoga, desktop yoga, chair yoga, yoga for business success. These people, laughter yoga, all forms of yoga. Unfortunately, they have not read Bhagavad-Gita. Because if they did read Bhagavad-Gita, especially this 6th chapter, they would know what is yoga. Yujati iti yoga, that which unites is yoga. Yuj, union, to join. And Agni Puran says, perfect union of the Jivatma, soul, with the Paramatma is yoga. The union between the soul and the super soul, that is yoga. Not what people are propagating as yoga. In the purport to text 1 and 2, Srila Prabhupada writes very beautifully, the criterion of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness and not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. To act in Krishna consciousness is the duty of every living entity because all are constitutionally part and parcels of the Supreme. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The limbs of the body do not act for self-satisfaction, but for the satisfaction of the complete whole. Similarly, the living entity who acts for satisfaction of the Supreme Whole, not for personal satisfaction, is the perfect sannyasi and perfect yogi. Prabhupada often used the example of the limbs of the body, hands, legs, etc. They all went on strike. Why should we serve the stomach? We have to do all the hard work, the cleaning, the cutting of vegetables, the cooking, and then we have to put the food in the mouth, and then the stomach enjoys, and the stomach does nothing. So we're going to boycott, we're going to strike. So they went on strike where they placards, boards, striking. We on strike, we're not going to serve the stomach. First day, second day, they started getting weaker. Third day, they were very weak. Slowly they began to realize, hold on, something was right here. By us serving the stomach, we become nourished. Similarly, by us serving the Supreme Lord, by us serving the root cause, by us watering water on the roots, which is Krishna, all the parts and parcels become nourished. 6.2 purport. Real sannyas yoga or bhakti means that one should know his constitutional position as the living entity and act accordingly. The living entity has no separate independent identity. He is the marginal energy of the Supreme. When he is entrapped by material energy, he is conditioned. And when he is Krishna conscious or aware of the spiritual energy, then he is in his real and natural state of life. Therefore, when one is in complete knowledge, one ceases all material sense gratification or renounces all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. So we are getting complete knowledge in the form of Bhagavad-Gita. We should have firm faith and we should embrace this knowledge. We should not be foolish and neglect this opportunity to perfect our lives. This is practiced by the yogis who restrain the senses from material attachment. But a person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is simultaneously a sannyasi and a yogi. Then Lord Krishna starts to discuss the yoga Ruda stage, giving up work. So in the beginning, the lower stage of in Ashtanga yoga or going towards Ashtanga yoga is where one would act, but without in a renounced spirit. Whereas we find as one advances, then one can give up work itself. So I have a question, and the question is, do you have enemies? Does any of you have any enemies? Can let us know in the chat. Manhar is too small to have enemies. Mukund, try not to make enemies. Rasastali says, yes, my mind. Hemavati says, yes. Yes, our senses, yes. Very good. So we all have enemies. And Krishna says, text 6, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Now, Krishna already told us what's the greatest enemy, the old sinful, devouring enemy of this world, lust. Now we have another great enemy, the mind. So we really don't need to look outside for the enemies. The enemies are right inside. Don't bother about your outside enemies first. Deal with what's inside first. Just like if your house is burning and your neighbor's house is burning, you're not going to say, okay, let's just, let me just go see what's, let me go help the neighbor's house and just check, what's happening. No, your house is burning. You're going to first, charity begins at home. You're going to first sort your house first. Like when you're flying, they say, before you help your child, please put your mask on. So we need to sort our mind first. Once your mind is sorted, then deal with everybody else. Stop worrying about everybody else's mind. So Krishna says here that our uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy. But in text 5, he makes a very interesting point. Krishna says one must deliver himself with the help of his mind. So even though the mind is the greatest enemy, I still need to use my mind to elevate myself. So I cannot destroy my mind. I need to make it my friend. So an uncontrolled mind is an enemy and a controlled mind is a friend. This means that if you follow the dictations of lust, anger, illusion, and the uncontrolled mind, they will lead you to become attached to sense gratification, and the result will be degradation and entanglement. Whereas if you follow the dictation of the super soul, of the Supreme Lord, of his devotees, then they will detach you from material sense gratification, and that will elevate you. The Viresh says the drowning man needs water to float and swim. Correct. That even though the drowning man is drowning, but that same water he needs to keep himself alive by floating and swimming. So nice, wonderful example. And similarly, the mind, you need the mind, it can destroy you, but that same mind can elevate you. So an expert person knows how to use the waters for him to swim and float. We need to be able to learn. It's an art, it's a skill that we need to learn. Krishna is going to teach us that skill. So the mind is like a garden. And if you consider in a garden, if your garden has only weeds, it becomes very difficult to plant beautiful flowers and fruits. Because if you plant beautiful flowers and fruits with the weeds, those beautiful flowers and fruits are going to become food for the weeds. So we first have to unweed the garden. That also means that if I got weeds, unnecessary plants, parasites in my garden, I cannot take advantage of my garden and grow beneficial plants. Similarly, in my mind, if I got weeds, garbage thoughts, thoughts that are negative, thoughts that are related to complaining, worrying, blaming, all these different unwanted thoughts in relation to weeds, I cannot put beneficial thoughts. I cannot be able to think of Krishna. What to talk about, just to be positive, but what positive is one level. Higher than that is really being Krishna conscious, the absolute positive aspect. So our first and foremost activity is to appreciate and understand that we need to focus our mind on Krishna and removing all unwanted thoughts. Lord Buddha made very, very important point. Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts. A man asked Lord Buddha, I want happiness. Lord Buddha said, first remove I, that's ego. Then remove want, that's desire. And see, now you are left only with happiness. Beautiful. So it's wonderful because, well, it's wonderful that if you remove I and want, I means ego and want means desire, you got happiness. But even more astounding is, why do you want happiness? You are made up of happiness. And if you're made up of happiness, why are you searching for happiness? The soul is Satchit Ananda. We should not be looking for happiness. We should not be searching for happiness. We are made up of happiness. By turning inwards, by becoming Krishna conscious, we will revive our constitutional nature. Mukund says, is it okay to kill weeds? So remember, weeds are plants which Krishna has given this creation because certain entities want to be parasitical, certain entities want to exploit. But for you to have a wonderful garden of valuable, beneficial plants, flowers, fruits, etc., then certain weeds are not beneficial. If you want to grow plants, flowers for Krishna, so now you put this beautiful, you put the seeds in the ground, you're going to see, and you water it and you have sunshine, you're going to see that there are weeds that come up. Now, if you don't deal with those weeds, you're not going to harvest those flowers and fruits that you're going to be able to offer to Krishna. So they are actually doing a disservice. Therefore, part of gardening is you have to unweed. Similarly, in spiritual life, in our consciousness, unfortunately, you have to remove those unwanted thoughts. So here's a picture that talks about the law of karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. That domino is coming down on him. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So consider, we all accept this law that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. As you sow, so shall you reap. So if that is the law, and this is the absolute law, that if you sow, you reap. Therefore, we don't want to act in a way that I don't want negative, I don't want to act in a way that I get negative reaction. I want to act in a way that I get empowered reaction, that I get blessings in return. I get good fortune, I get prosperity, I get wonderful outcomes. I get Krishna conscious outcomes. So any thought that you think, it's an action. It's a subtle form of action. Every single thought is a subtle form of action, which means every single thought is an action. You're sowing a seed, and therefore you're going to reap a reaction. You're going to reap some fruits. If you are sowing seeds in the form of thoughts, if you are acting in the form of thoughts negatively, negative thoughts, blaming thoughts, fault-finding thoughts, criticizing thoughts, blaming thoughts, disempowering thoughts, sense gratificatory thoughts, then you are going to get a reaction corresponding to that, which is unhealthy for you. So therefore, we have to try and nib every unproductive thought right from the beginning, to not contemplate on it. Try to develop a Krishna conscious mindset. That is most beneficial. And the best way to do that is simply absorb yourself in a Krishna conscious environment. The more you soak yourself up in a Krishna conscious environment, the more your mind will become tamed. Then section 3 covers verses 10 to 32. Krishna is going to talk now about the stages in the practice of this Ashtanga Yoga. Text 10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. As I mentioned, make sure you try to bring Krishna into your life. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desire and feeling of possessiveness. So this is specifically in relation to Ashtanga Yoga. In these purports, you can read on your own. Srila Prabhupada covers how this relates to Krishna conscious environment. So for example, a devotee doesn't live in seclusion. He lives in association of devotees. But he lives in seclusion from materialistic people that can contaminate his consciousness. So in this way, each one of these principles that Krishna is sharing can be applied in the process of Bhakti Yoga, and Prabhupada in the purports share those aspects. But you can see this is what real Ashtanga Yoga is. Ashtanga Yoga cannot be practiced with the family. It's not like you take your family and you practice Ashtanga Yoga. No, Ashtanga Yoga means you go alone to the mountains, in the forest, and you practice Ashtanga Yoga alone. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high or too low and should be situated in a sacred place. A yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. And this, by the way, takes 60,000 years. One should hold one's body, neck, and head straight in an erect in a straight line and steadily and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. So even in Ashtanga Yoga, the focus, the goal is ultimately Krishna. It's a mechanical process to control the mind, the senses, and focus the mind on Krishna. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi or Arjuna if he eats too much or sleeps too little, or eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough. So regulation is key. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Then text 18. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. So one of the first qualities that is required is discipline. One has to be disciplined in this process. And discipline is also very key in the process of Bhakti Yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, So the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. So the yogi experiences great joy when he comes in contact with the Supreme as a super soul. So it's not that we are deprived of happiness, but the happiness that we can get is boundless, anandam bodhivadhanam, ever increasing ocean of bliss. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. When we perfect our Krishna consciousness, we will realize that there was no other glorious path, and we will never be shaken from that position, even amidst the greatest difficulties. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So wonderful instruction by Krishna. We have to engage with determination and faith, and we should not be deviated from the path. We have to be focused. Just consider materialist, people that want to make money through business. The materialists, or even in any avenue, the materialists, they will never give up material life. They will die, but never give up material life. Just see their determination. They are so fixed that even at the cost of dying, they will not give up materialistic life. So if they can be so determined for material life, why can we not be determined for spiritual life? We should have the faith and the determination as they have for material life, we should have for spiritual life. And Prabhupada said material life is impossible. Spiritual life is difficult. So yes, it's not going to be easy. We need to cultivate, we need to associate, we need to do what's required. But Krishna's mercy is there. And that faith we should have. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction. And thus, the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Text 26. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control of the self. So the mind's nature is chanchalam hi mana Krishna. The mind is chanchala, the mind is flickering. And you should not be surprised that the mind is flickering. Krishna says that's the nature of the mind. But we have to constantly bring it back. So it needs that taming, constant taming. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attained the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mold of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. He is not quantitatively one with God. He is qualitatively one with Krishna. Thus, the self-control yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfection, or highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he lost to me. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. So here, Krishna is making a distinction that there's the Supersoul, but there's also him. The Supersoul is an expansion of Krishna. It's one feature of Krishna that is all pervading in the material creation. In the spiritual world, there is no Supersoul. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison, in his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Then section 4, Lord Krishna covers now the necessity of controlling the mind in the yoga practice. Text 33 to 36, Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the yoga system which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it is more difficult than controlling the wind. And this is Arjuna, who's an Aryan, who's a powerful warrior. And this is his realization. And Lord Krishna agrees. Lord Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So Krishna is encouraging, it is possible, but it's possible by suitable practice and by detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. And Krishna's opinion is perfect. Prabhupada in the purport shares with us very wonderfully. In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the Supersoul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in the 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from the activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn Vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Pareshanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objects. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore the expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Then section 5 covers the destination of an unsuccessful yogi. Text 37, Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of an unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith and who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? O mighty Am Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any space, in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. The Supreme Personality of God had said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with the destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Another beautiful point by Krishna, that if we on the path of righteousness, if we living a life according to how Krishna is instructing, we will never be overcome by evil. Krishna will protect the devotee. And if a devotee is on this path, Krishna makes it very clear that he will not meet with destruction in this life or in the spiritual world. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many births of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So if one is on this path, he will continue on this path. Even if there's a temporary setback, still Krishna will give him enjoyment in heavenly planets. After that, he'll take birth in a righteous family or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. So we see how children are born to devotee family, devotee parents, because in the past they were practicing spiritual life. And in this way, from birth, they are connected to Krishna in some way. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. So there's no loss or diminution on this path. By virtue of divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of scriptures. Text 65, and when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So we should know that on the spiritual path, there is absolutely no loss. We simply continue from where we left off. If we are at 50%, next life 51%. This is the glorious position. Therefore, at every moment, every day, we should try to keep endeavoring on this path of spiritual life. Then finally, Krishna concludes section 6, the topmost yogi. Krishna says, text 46, a yogi is greater than an ascetic, greater than an empiricist, and greater than a fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. And this beautiful verse, Krishna's opinion about the greatest, topmost yogi, text 47. Yoginam api sarvesham matkate nantaratmana shradhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mata. Of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. And we said Krishna's opinion is absolute. He's been humble. This is my opinion. You can accept it if you want. But we intelligent, we know that accepting Krishna's opinion is the most glorious. So Krishna says, of all yogis, one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental love service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So therefore, Ashtanga Yoga means absorption in Krishna. It's just that it's a very mechanical process that is very difficult and not practical for this age. So these 6 chapters that Krishna covers that we have covered is really addressing the yoga ladder, starting with animal life, going to karma kanda, circum karma yoga, nishkam karma yoga, jnana yoga, which today we covered Astanga yoga, and then now middle 6 chapters from 7 to 12, Krishna is going to cover bhakti yoga. And in essence, this is what Krishna wants to really share with the world. We've covered the different yogas, and you see in this chart, bhakti yoga includes all the other, all the different limbs, includes work, knowledge, renunciation, meditation, and devotion. But bhakti yoga is the only one that is perfect and complete in all these aspects. It's the most natural form of linking yourself with God. You can connect with God through karma. You can connect to God through your knowledge. You can connect with God through a stanga, mechanical process of yoga. But the best way is bhakti yoga, because it includes engagement of the senses, includes works, includes knowledge. So it's the most practical, most perfect form of yoga. And we see in the yoga ladder, starting with the lowest mode, tamas, ignorance, then going to passion, then going to sattva, and then going to sudasattva. And while on this journey, there are many obstacles. The karma kandis, they can become attached to sense gratification. The circum and nishkam devotees, they can become attached to heavenly pleasures. The jnana yogis can become attached to merging with God. The stanga yogis can become attached to mystic powers. The bhakti yogi can become attached to fame, following, and opulence. So we have to guard against all obstacles. And the goal is to keep climbing up this ladder right to the top and never be distracted by anything, because we should be focused on the goal. We should know what the goal is. And the goal is pure, loving, devotional service to Krishna. And that brings us to the end of this chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So are there any questions before I present an announcement?
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
So-
Krishna.
I had one question when you were talking about you must have faith on Krishna, so you must trust Krishna.
Yes.
So I had a question. What if you know you can trust Krishna, but you still feel very much fear? How can you overcome that fear? like- How could you overcome it?
Right. So you have some trust, but there may still be some fear. So it's not that we would immediately have full trust and there would be no fear. It's a gradual process of intensifying the trust, the faith, and the more we intensify that faith, the less fear will be there. Eventually, there will be no fear. Like Srila Prabhupada, his name is Abhay Charan. Abhay Charan means one who's fearless. So Abhay means fearless. One of the qualities of a pure devotee is fearlessness. So in the conditioned stage, we would still experience fear. And still, even if we experience fear, no problem. We know we're on the right path and we simply continue. Faith also can increase. We can increase our faith. So initially we may have faith, but that faith may not be completely solidified. So therefore, we keep practicing Krishna consciousness, and Krishna will give us different experiences. Krishna will show, will reciprocate, and that faith will become stronger and stronger and stronger until one day that faith is like cement. Consider if you have experience of building. Have you seen anyone worked with cement? Like when they're building the house, then they cement.
Yes.
Now,
I've seen.
that cement in the beginning is wet, right?
Yes.
So even though it's wet, they would put it in the appropriate place, and after a few days, it starts to become harder and harder, and eventually becomes so hard that it becomes difficult to break. So like that, our faith in the beginning is thick, it becomes thicker, becomes a little solid, becomes more solid, becomes very strong, becomes absolutely strong. It's a gradual process. As long as we don't give up the process, that faith will become stronger and stronger. And as that faith becomes stronger, the fear reduces.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Pleasure. Anyone else? Any other questions? All good? All right, so the balance of the chapters from 7 to 18, I've already conducted those lessons. Mukund has put the link, and what I will do is if you go to YouTube and you just search for Chaitanya Life Academy, let me just give you that link as well, because then you can use this link as well. We're going to be placing all the rest of the videos that from 7 to 18 that I did. You can, this is the playlist on Chaitanya Life Academy. So you can get those lectures from 7 to 18 on there. I'll start uploading them. They're in the Google Drive that Mukund has posted, and I will start downloading those and putting that on the Chaitanya Life Academy as well. Now, we would like to thank everyone, both on Zoom as well as on YouTube, for joining us for these 6 chapters, Bhagavad-Gita overview. I hope you learned something and were able to take something with you to apply in your Krishna consciousness. If there's any way we can serve and help you in your spiritual life, please let us know. I am planning to have Srimad Bhagavatam overview, or you could say overview of more association with Srimad Bhagavatam starting on Monday. This weekend I'll research in terms of the format, so it's not going to be as entertaining in terms of the presentation. We heard the medication is hearing about Krishna, and the diet is Krishna Prasad. So the diet you can cook at home and honor Prasadam, and for hearing about Krishna, we're going to associate with Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad-Gita is the undergraduate study, and Srimad Bhagavatam is now expanding from Bhagavad-Gita. Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study. So I'm going to try to do sessions every day. The goal is to cover Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 years. And those of you that like to attend, you're most welcome to attend. I'm going to share a link, a WhatsApp link for you, so that I can keep you informed. Those of you that are interested, you can join the group. And what we're going to do is what the idea is that we want all the students that are going to come for this. We want you to read at least 16 pages. And each day we're going to cover approximately 16 pages, which takes about 30 to 45 minutes just to read, because there's obviously the verses, etc. And if there's festivals, etc., we obviously will miss those days. But the idea is that you read at least 16 pages. We then go over certain important verses. We offer some prayers to Srimad Bhagavatam, go over some important verses, and then we cover some important points in Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports. Right, so that's the goal. That's what we're going to try to do. And this is the link if anybody would like to join. Those of you that are already in the weekly study group, we will post the new Zoom link there, and you're most welcome to attend. After 3 years, we will then do CC, will take 1 year, and then we'll start covering other Goswami books that Srila Prabhupada wanted us, like Jaiva Dharma, etc. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session. Does anybody want to share any feedback, any questions, any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Viresh.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this enlightening course. It seems it was just so short, but we need it like every day for the rest of our lives. The point is, chapter 6, Krishna gives a lot of tools and a lot of sort of guidelines on controlling the mind, and that can help us to, to the ultimate goal.
Yes.
And at no point does he say that this is not the final rung on the ladder or the destination where we can stop here. And what separates this nectar or this information, because it's appearing in the Bhagavad-Gita, so it's very sacred. Now, what's sort of the variable or the missing factor that takes us to Bhakti Yoga from here, that we're not, that's going to add more to the potency of the way of life and the tools.
Right. Good point. So in chapter 6, Krishna mentioned that the yogi focuses on me, the super soul. The yogi is absorbed, he's regulated his senses, his senses are inwards, his mind is fully absorbed in me, right? The super soul.
Yes.
And by doing that, he experienced unbounded happiness. But that is only the super soul. The super soul is like the expansion of 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 the expansion, 7 times of Krishna. It is not Krishna. From 7th chapter now, Krishna is going to speak about himself, Soyam Bhagavan.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And now when you connect with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, now there's mystical things that happen. So, for example, Krishna will tell us that when you surrender to him, then he carries what you lack and preserve what you have.
Okay.
So, carrying what you lack is according to your karma. What you lack is you're not going to get. And what you have, you may lose according to karma. But Krishna says, don't worry. You surrender to me, I will carry what you lack and preserve what you have. If you meant to lose something according to karma and I say, no, you should keep it, Krishna will bless you and you'll keep it. If you meant to lose if you meant to not get something, Krishna says, no, you need it. Krishna will bless you and you'll get it. This is the power of connecting with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the yogi can also, the yogi only has a neutral relationship with the super soul. He cannot have a dialogue. With Krishna, you can speak, you can see, you can reciprocate, you can engage in the different rasas that are there. So it's now becoming more personal, more relishable, and going back to the spiritual world in loving devotional service.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Beautiful, thanks. Basically, we're talking about the 3 forms of the Lord is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So now you're talking about going from Paramatma to Bhagavan. That is the goal from henceforth. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so Krishna, in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna introduces himself, right? And then says surrender. And here we find Krishna also making very clear, Prabhupada in the purport is giving us the hint that we should hear about Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam is all about the glories of Krishna. Therefore, if we simply associate with the Srimad Bhagavatam, just the association with Bhagavatam is purifying, is revealing, we're getting blessed. And in this way, we're progressing on the path of perfection.
Jai.
Wonderful.
Thanks. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else would like to share? So Newton said, you mentioned that even if, this is on YouTube, even if we think a negative thought, we get a reaction. Even though we consciously try to avoid this, it happens. How do we counteract such a negative thought? So a negative thought in the previous yugas always produced a reaction. So if I, for example, thought of smoking a cigarette in the previous age, in Satya Yuga, Tetra Yuga, I would have got lung cancer just by thinking of smoking. In Kali Yuga, we are blessed. And the blessing is that if you think of a negative thought, you do not get a reaction immediately. The beauty is that if you think of anything that's Krishna conscious, positive Krishna consciousness, you get the result of that activity. So if I think of eating Krishna Prasad, I automatically get the benefit that I have already eaten Krishna Prasad. That's the power of thinking of Krishna. Just like we are doing Bhagavad-Gita overview, we be reading Krishna's words, thinking of Krishna. We getting purified, just by the intention that we had, we got purified. If you go through it, you get purified. If you apply it, you get purified. So that's the benediction. If you think of anything negative, you don't get an immediate reaction. But remember, we said, Dhyayato Vishyan Punsa. If you keep contemplating like that thread, so you have one thread, Krishna doesn't react. You get second thread, third thread. Now you start contemplating, that becomes a string. That string slowly becomes a rope, and then you hang yourself. So therefore, before you start contemplating, one or two is okay, you need to check it. That's why it's very important that we are aware of the thoughts. And as soon as the thoughts surface, we need to check it. So it's not wrong, it's not detrimental that you have negative thoughts. Be aware, check them, and try to eliminate them. Try not to think of them by thinking of Krishna, by chanting, by engaging in hearing more about Krishna. That will purify the consciousness, and you will start getting more Krishna conscious thoughts. I hope that answers. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Let's start with Hari Bhakti.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for enlivening talk. And I really appreciate it. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for attending.
You're welcome.
Where are you from, Maraji?
From Durban.
From Durban. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Mother Hemavati Radhika, you had a question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We want to offer a poem on behalf of all of us as a token of our heartfelt, sincere appreciation to yourself and Mother Madri for giving us your time, mercy through this wonderful overview series. So the poem goes like this. During this COVID pandemic, we locked down on level 3, apparently no longer free. But then came a ray of hope to help us all cope. His Grace Narshingananda Prabhu gave us a series of Bhagavad-Gita class, imparting to us spiritual knowledge that will forever last. The absolute truth is revealed, is so enlivening. Good fortune and inspiration to us did this bring. Her Grace Mother Madri, beautiful slide she expertly did design, in which priceless spiritual gems we did find. So much time, care, and effort she took to make, especially for our sake. Bhagavad-Gita is Krishna's divine song, sung to his dear friend Arjun to correct all wrong. The sacred book, non different from the Lord, is so pure. The suffering material disease it can fully cure. It has been said that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, as we read. Srila Prabhupada's divine purport so brilliantly shine, illuminating Vedic wisdom so divine. We have learned to be self-aware and observe. Finding the real solution is what we deserve. The false ego is our greatest obstacle, causing us illusion and so much confusion. I am not this body, but a spiritual being, part and parcel of the Supreme. Be not like the cat who in the mirror sees himself like a tiger so great, a misidentification that will doom its fate. Just turn our face to Krishna in our heart, and the transcendental knowledge he will kindly impart. Climb up the yoga ladder and rise. We will eventually become spiritually wise. Learn the art of working for Krishna's pleasure, not wanting the results for our leisure. Surrender to Krishna and never fear. Once we surrender, he will always be near. Break the threads of sinful thoughts by chanting the holy name before it becomes a rope that will make us hang in shame. Getting rid of our lust is an absolute must. Dovetail all our activities into devotion is a secret potion that will transform our lust to love for our beloved Krishna high above. Offer our food to Krishna and free ourselves from sin. Surrender everything to him and we will only win. The disciplic succession is bona fide. They have nothing to hide. Their message is unchanged, the very same, right from Krishna as it came. To develop unflinching faith, trust in them is a must. Take shelter of a spiritual master, because by his causeless mercy we will reach Krishna much faster. Think of Krishna 24 hours a day, especially at the time of death. Then the spiritual kingdom will be our final destination without delay. With grateful hearts, we thank Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for bewildering Arjun so that Krishna could speak this Bhagavad Gita for our benefit. With grateful hearts, we thank Srila Prabhupada for giving Bhagavad Gita as it is for all of us and the world with his wonderful purports. With grateful hearts, we thank His Grace Narsinghananda Prabhu and Her Grace Mother Madri, an outstanding team, for inspiring us to appreciate, read, study, and love Bhagavad Gita. From all your grateful servants who attended this series, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Wow, wonderful poem. So amazing. One of the 26 qualities of a devotee is kavi, a poet. And that was a very amazing poem. So many wonderful gems, lessons just within that poem. So what I would like you to do, Hemavati Radhika, is when we launch Chaitanya Life Academy, we're gonna exactly how we're gonna have like how we did. We have Bhagavad Gita, so we have like the 18 chapters, and then we obviously go into detail. So it'll be nice if you could compile, let's say, a poem for that chapter.
Okay.
In terms of, let's say, the interesting points, put that into a poem, and then let's see, we could even put some music. But yes, that was fantastic, wonderful.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Radhika also said, thank you, Prabhu and Mataji. It was wonderful to start the year with Bhagavad Gita classes. Yes. So thank you very much. Please continue to associate with Krishna. We are fortunate by Srila Prabhupada's mercy that we have Bhagavad Gita, we have Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Chaitanya Charitamrita. So really there is absolutely no, there is no excuse for us. In fact, the COVID epidemic is in some way a blessing, because now we're forced to stay home and be Krishna conscious. We can save so much time. For those of us working from home, we save so much time traveling. So, and we have so much opportunity to hear online. Naturally, when lockdown and when this whole COVID thing is over, and it will be over, because Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, happiness and distress like winter and summer seasons. They come and they go. Nothing will survive forever. So it will go. It may not go according to when we want it to go, but it will go. And while it's on its way or not on its way, we still continue becoming Krishna conscious. So that is our focus. And if we absorb ourselves becoming Krishna conscious, then the external environment is secondary. So thank you very much for all the devotees. We hope you have a fantastic and wonderful Krishna conscious year to increase your attachment to Krishna, and may your attachment increase month by month, year by year, until it fully blossoms into pure love and service to Krishna. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all.